Welcome everybody back to another Purpose Serve podcast episode. We're going to get straight to it today. I ain't even going to play around with y'all today. You know what I'm saying? As always, as with usual, there's been a lot weighing heavy on my mind, heavy on my heart. That this is definitely the space to get that out. I'm not even going to lie. Yet again, to everybody that's been tuning in as of late, you already know, man. I appreciate y'all so much. 100 grand, a lot. And I'm noticing that we are getting frequently more new listeners, which is showing me I gotta start putting this out more frequently. I gotta stop playing in that regard, and for that, I do appreciate y'all for tuning in with me doing random drops. That's a disservice to y'all, for real. But thank y'all, seriously. And for the people that's new here, this podcast is simply about inspiring you guys to, live your best lives. You know what I'm saying? Go for that ultimate good within yourselves. Happy Mother's Day as well as Mother's Day. Shout out to all the moms that's out there doing anything. Shout out to everybody that has a loving mother. Make sure, y'all do something nice for her today. And even with my mom, I would talk about this all the time. I wouldn't be the person that I am if it wasn't for my mom. Well, my parents. We all should recognize that. The good, the bad, and the indifferent. And I guess this goes along the lines with what I'm talking about today. And it's the question, what's free? I sprinkled here and there a little bit on this type of things, but I guess the more that we really, really focus in on it, the more we can act on these things that was given to us for free. And these last couple of weeks I've been talking about the ideas to results, the world of purpose, and one of the very first things that pops off ideas to results is balancing out the two worlds, which is our personal world and our natural world. And this is when we know we going in towards troubling times. And not only that, we've been here for a long time. Ecclesiastes. Nothing is new under the sun. But we pay for things like water, we pay for things like fruit, we pay for things like vegetables when they naturally grow out of the ground. That's like it already was there before humans even came into the equation. And to me, as with anybody, if you really, really think about that, it's wild. Like, we sell necessities. Necessities aren't given for free. You gotta buy a bottle of water. You gotta buy apples when they grow from the land for free. A lot of people look past that. What's the point nowadays to even think about something like that? But there's some deep implications with that. I'm just the type of person, straight up, I just think deep into every single thing. I can't help it. I literally can't help it. But it's nuts, real talk, that the things that were the best things were given to us for free. And starting foremost with like our mind. Everybody that got a mind, that was given to you for free. You didn't have to pay for that. Not with monetary gain. I say that it probably was sacrifices that was made for mine. Like, I don't know. Instead of being mad, stronger, and more barbaric, we probably traded those points in to be smarter, make things more convenient than lazy. Instead of running around here like a full-on grizzly bear or a lion. But I digress. Start talking BS. But the book that I was mentioning to you guys on the previous podcast, Man and the Symbols, at one particular part that I got into the book, the author was talking about inanimate objects and how inanimate objects have non-being in it. And I thought that this was super interesting when I came across this, because this is something that I've known to be true. And if you go back in the previous podcast episodes, you would hear little things like this here and there. But For example, a stone being an inanimate object that's like a non-being. It carries like a spiritual quality within the stone. And this is real deep, but like I said, I think that here we created the space where now we can be open and honest about these things and talk about them in the open space without it sounding like it's too far out there. Because believe it or not, if you guys have been tuning in for as long as if you've been tuning in to, if that just made sense, but you'll recognize that there's universal truths that constantly is speaking to us, constantly. But here's the issue and here's the trouble. Can you consciously see what's right in front of you? Or are you unconsciously reacting to everything that happens to you, which is a choice? You can be proactive with life or you can be reactive. And your best bet is to be proactive rather than be reacting. If you are reacting, you better be prepared to react. But the stone, and the one thing that I thought about in this book when they was talking about the stone, I was thinking about when you have the sword craftsman, that, for example, the craft masters that made samurai swords and katanas and stuff like that, where they would take a large stone slab and they're turning into something, and not only that, this inanimate object is going to be the deciding factor between life and death. Like, this thing is the spark of life and also the carrier of death. This thing is going to protect the wielder, but also, can inflict harm to the person that's attacking, the person that's using it. But yet and still, let's not forget what that thing is in its most raw form. It's a rock. And every single thing that you look at around you, especially when it comes to human creation, you got to look at the bare bones of what that thing was before it started transforming. The biggest thing that I've been talking about here has also a lot to do with the World of Purpose project that I have, and the significance of something as profound and simple as E=mc squared, and that the law of conservation, energy can't be created nor destroyed. So with that being said, you guys gotta ask yourself what's really going on. And for me, I'm starting to understand personally. You guys gotta experience this for yourself, but I'm understanding personally that the things that was given to us for free is the most valuable thing. And the things that we are paying for with material things is already dead and complete in its nature. And our goal as human beings is to preserve life and push it forward. And not only that, complete our task as being human beings as well. And symbolically speaking, back in 2020, I tell a story all the time about my boy Steve, who made the Purpose Served logo for me and how significant that was. And the symbolism in that logo, something that it's a configuration of old things turning into something new. And there's huge implications in what I said with that as well. But during that time, I wanted the logo to represent going towards that aim, and not only that, going towards that aim, but completing that aim when it's all said and done. And that's why Purpose Served is called Purpose Served. Because for me personally, I wanted to know when I reached the end of my finish line, I want to know I did everything that I had to do to serve my purpose. Like, my purpose was served. And that's everybody that's like new and this is your first time listening to me. Basketball was the thing that taught me that. And I had the vision to play basketball. I had the will to play basketball, but it was such a bumpy road. And something that I learned through my journey with playing basketball, for like the last like 14 years of my life, 15. It's just that life forces things upon you that you may think that you're not ready for, but it's already built within you, like our mind, our heartbeats. This is something that I talked about on the last podcast episode. But if you cut open a human being and examine their physical heart, that's not going to tell you where the spiritual heart was actually at for this person. It is giving you the mechanistic, or the mechanism of how the heart works, but it don't tell you the unique property of who this person is. And I think that now at this point in our culture and society, that's what we really have to start tapping into. This is stuff that our ancestors used to survive. Without these things, you won't get religion. Without these things, you won't get the creativity and the playfulness of life. And nowadays, people are doing things that's in a system that's already made. People want instant amount of followers without doing the work. People want to sit around and make TikTok videos that's trendy, that can go viral, because the quicker that they do that, the better, and the less they got to do in the long run. People are naturally thinking like this. And how dangerous is that for our society in the long run? Instant gratification. I tell you what, people, it's mad dangerous. When you're looking at teenagers and even like, kids, they don't understand the long-term game of life. And a lot of times they want to take the shortcut. They want to hurry up and finish their homework so they could go outside and they could play. And, there's time for work and there's time for play. But within that work, there's important things that's going on. An analogy that I use for this is that stretch when we're kids, when we're learning the alphabet, to then put together words, to then put together the sentences, to then eventually be able to put together paragraphs. But essentially speaking, what I'm recognizing is what's going on. We haven't had the time personally, individually, to sit back and analyze the fundamentals of who we are from a soul and spiritual sense. In the beginning of me starting this podcast journey, I was initiating myself into these kind of things without me even realizing what I was actually doing. But through doing that and really, really trusting the higher purpose that came, the message came from inside of me, but it definitely was an outside source, something that I talk about all the time. But I think that outside source is what connects me to all things. And I'm able to recognize that in my personal experience. It's not something that I read or I watch videos on. I'm able in my day-to-day interactions with people and life itself, I'm able to see these things. And that's why they're able to click. And that's why with certain things that I see that people are doing and how they live in life and how they conducting themselves, they're living backwards. They're spending money to try to show people what they're worth. You get nowhere by doing that. It can help temporarily, but you're not solving the real problem, which is a you problem. And that's the best place to start. Solve the you problem first. Solve your problem first. And be truthful and honest with yourself to allow whatever purpose that you're supposed to live out to genuinely and truly come out. What a challenge for every single life that crosses over into the lowest form of existence, which I believe is physical reality. Not saying that that's the worst, but there are highs and lows. The ground and the clouds tell you that if you look closely enough. But yeah, it seemed like we're trading in our creativity for things that's determined, things that we can put an algorithm to. But the one cool thing about our minds and our hearts and our spirit and our soul is just that it can be temporal, which means that it could come and go. It's really, really hard to hold on to our plans, and it's really, really hard to hold on to our ideas. It's like trying to hold water in your hands. And this is why I preach, in order to serve your purpose, you got to act on your ideas and your plans. This is a conversation that I had with my mom's earlier today. And this is why I guess this is like so heavy on my heart. I've been talking to so many people about this as of late. But you got to crystallize your form. You got to crystallize your soul, and you got to crystallize your spirit, because when it's all said and done, that's what you're doing no matter what. You can't turn your brain off, and you can't stop your heart from beating. You're going to have to take an external thing to do that. But you from the inside can't do that. It's something from the outside that's going to have to make you do that, which goes to tell you something. And you're probably asking yourself, what is that telling? No, I don't even know what you're hitting for. That something in you is built and programmed to push towards a life no matter what the circumstances, which is also another huge implication. And that implication is just that something in you not only wants you to survive, but it wants you to prosper. Truly. But when you listen to other people that's living a limited belief version of themselves and showing that to the world, how the hell are you going to be able to recognize that within yourself if that's constantly what you're seeing? Shortchanged versions of what experiencing being an actual human is supposed to be. And you got way more people that failed at that than people that passed. And that's why the people that passed at it, they stick out so much. You can't help but watch and listen to them. Look at a great artist. Listen to great music. Look at a great athlete. Something about them and the way that they conduct themselves is inspirational. It's motivating. It's captivating. Because you recognize something within yourself that was able to connect to something like that. But 9 times out of 10, and this may not be in regards to people that's listening, but it's something that's for sure certainly going on in the world right now, is that people lack that within themselves. But that don't mean they don't have it at all. Because if you didn't have it at all, you wouldn't be able to recognize that. Everything connects. When you don't know where to look, when you haven't been getting that encouragement, when you've been having a string of bad luck, take a step back and take a bird's eye view on life. And can you take yourself out of the equation and look at what's really, really going on? And can you take yourself out of the equation to see what you have to do in this present moment to get out of that? Because it's oftentimes not easy feeling your way through dark walls until you get the light, especially when your eyes is closed and you've been conditioned to look at things with your eyes closed. If you guys want to know a story on that and the implications of that, I suggest you guys look up the allegory of the cave, which is in the Republic by Aristotle, which in a nutshell, I talked about this on this podcast, but people are chained up in a cave on a wall, and they're facing a wall in the heart of the cave. And there's a fire in back of the wall that their backs is on that can light up the wall that they're looking at. And with this fire, people got objects like flower vases, a makeshift bird, and they're casting these shadows on the wall that the people are looking at. These people are chained up to this wall and they're looking at a wall with this fake light. And I did a whole podcast on this episode back in, I believe, last year, and showing that how real this stuff is. These stories that people like to, these myths that people like to say is like make believe, the once upon a times, but those stories be more real than real if you can dissect the symbolism that's being presented and the imagery that's being presented right in front of your face. So pretty much the allegory of the cave was an analogy to Socrates bringing the truth to people. And what happens is once the truth from what the actual sun looked like makes its way back into the cave, they typically kill the messenger. And the examples that I pointed out with this is you have people in the civil rights movement that if it wasn't for individuals like Huey P. Newton, Malcolm X, Steve Coakley, which a lot of people are like, who in the world? I never even heard of these dudes before, but he ended up being able to maneuver through the cracks. But the other two people were assassinated. They were killed because of their beliefs. That's another reason why people withhold themselves from speaking the truth. And partially for me, that was a fear until I started living it. And then once I started living it, I had no choice but to speak it. And then I started getting and starting to really understand these places of, like, for example, the original source of the allegory of the cave, Socrates, how he got to the point where he got to. He got to the like very end and then decided that, well, the people during that time, the higher ups started really realizing that he was starting to have a strong influence on the younger generation and starting to influence the way that they think and the way that they conducted themselves, which was starting to be like a national security threat. And they put this man on trial. And not only that, they made him literally drink the juice. It's not funny. This stuff is not funny because it's like it's real. But it's funny. He had some quotable last words that I would like to read. Because I think that for this is like at the moment is relevant. While the man was saying this, he handed the cup to Socrates, which is the cup of poison. And Socrates took it in a cheerful way, not flinching or getting pale or grimacing. Then looking at the man from beneath his brows, look at like a bull. That was the way he used to look at people. He said, "What do you say about my pouring a liberation out of this cup to someone? Is it allowed or not?" The man answered, "What we grind is measured out, Socrates, as the right dose for drinking." And I understand, he said, "but surely it is allowed and even proper to pray to the gods so that my transfer of dwelling from this world to that world should be fortunate. So that is what I too am now praying for. Let it be this way." And while saying this, he took the cup to his lips and quite readily and cheerfully he drank down the whole dose. So at this point, he willingly accepted his fate, straight up. He knew what the cup was. He knew the poison. He wasn't trying to talk himself out of it. He wasn't trying to save himself. It is what it is. At this point, he reached the finish line of his purpose, and he was about to serve this thing out completely. OD. Savage. What a savage. And I'm so psycho, I want to get to that point in my life. I want to have that Mamba mentality that, and I've always been like this. It's just that when push comes to shove, I want to know that I'm acting off of my legacy. I'm acting off of my immortality. I'm acting off my soul, and I'm acting off of my spirit. I ain't acting off of my flesh. I'm not acting off of doubt. I'm not acting off of fear, but I'm acting in full being activated. And that's what I'm trying to get to 24/7. But you know what would be even more dope? If we all started moving like that. What would the world look like? And is that possible? I'm psycho enough and crazy enough to think that that's possible, right? It's crazy. The gut book teaches us that we low-key got two options straight up, right? That's to miss the mark, which by definition means sin, or to be righteous, upright living, going towards the highest good that you possibly can for yourself. Not for other people, because I tell you what other people think might be good for you might not be good for you. And I'm going to show you how subtle that is, right? We all think of peer pressure in the realms of like, taking drugs and freaking drinking, partying, sex, all of that. You know what I mean? The real generic surface level, what everybody talk about, but nobody want to go to the heart of the matter of it. It could be as subtle as somebody offering you a job of someplace that is not in your best interest. The benefits is cool. You get a pension, job security, but is that really what your soul is supposed to be doing? Going towards security? Or is it supposed to be going towards completion? Right? Which one sounds better? That's why you got to go towards the unknown. There's so much darkness that need to be lit up. And I think that the source, God, is showing us that more than ever right now. We got a lot of people with a whole bunch of light potential, but it needs to take form. There's so many people out there that got souls that need to be crystallized. They got spirits that's dropping down, but they don't know how to distinguish what's what, to understand what their purpose is, and to move accordingly with that. That's why I'm so big on the work that I'm doing. I recognize that there's a huge problem what's going on. And my boy Carl Jung, that I mentioned in the book that I'm reading, Man and the Symbols, he equated that to soul sickness, which now we've labeled mental health crisis. But they're one and the same. But even in those two in itself, a soul sickness versus a mental health crisis, one sounds kind of more drastic than the other, naturally just saying it. And you guys know which one it is. You guys know which one it is, the heart of the matter. Like, oh, what is that soul sickness? I never even heard of something like that. That one's definitely way more intriguing than a mental health crisis. It's like slapping on something, a label that you don't even know what it actually is. And we got to figure out what it is. And we can't figure it out in a way where we think that we could determine what a heart is based off of how much blood it pumps out and how many times it beat a minute, or in 30 seconds. That don't necessarily tell you what it is. It just tell you what it is in that kind of context. We are multifaceted beings. For some odd reason, we have some sort of power generator inside of us that's invisible, that can connect us to any point in time in history. That's acausal. It don't even have to be connected. How wild is that we're in something like that? That's nuts. That's wild. And it's even more wild for the people that dedicate their lives into figuring it out in their own unique way. Yet again, this is where World of Purpose Project comes in. In the world of physics, we see that. In religion, we see that. In literature, we see that. We see that in art. We see that in so many different avenues that, what people use with their energy and their limited, time with this plane of existence. The couple of decades that we all got. What do people do with it that really, really changed the world? And I believe that everybody that's listening and is tuned in, y'all are them people. Like, the fact that y'all randomly, if you're listening up to this at this point of me 30 minutes and rambling and you made it to this point, you are that beacon of light. Like, swear to God. Why are you listening to me and about something like this? That shouldn't make you feel funny. That should make you feel goated. You heading towards something and you trying to find something that's real deep inside yourself. And I tell you what, you're getting close. If not, you're already there. I don't even think that there's no separation for real. If you really want to ask me, the fact that you're even being guided in the way that you are, you got to lean into that. And you got to really trust that. It's a wholehearted commitment. And I talk about things 24/7, like doing it wholeheartedly. I wouldn't have been where I'm at if I didn't do things wholeheartedly. In spite of the fears that come up, in spite of the doubts, in spite of me feeling as though, like, I'm not up for the task, I'm going to do it anyway. That's just how I'm built. Like, I won't let fear let me sit still. It's over for that. Um, and I believe that you guys are special as well. And with these projects, the World Purpose Project, I'm gonna be dropping pretty much transcripts and manuscripts on my website if you guys want to check that out, but www.purposeserved.com. And I'm also going to be putting my presentations up there for ideas to results, the power of the mind's eye. And the first segment is going to be for the ideas to results, building a foundation. Something that I talked about so many times on this podcast, but just package it up for you guys and talking about the importance of purpose and having a goal and having a service that actualizes that goal through the purpose. And we're going to be getting into symbolism using a circle, a triangle, and a square to convey the importance of, the basics, the fundamentals of life itself, and how we can see that in everything. And that's going to be the first of 4 parts. The 3 other parts is going to be, finding a form. Something that we talked about a little bit on here in this podcast with, for example, like physics, art, music. All of these things are, functions to a form, which I really get into in these presentations. And all in all, how that can lead to impact, how it does lead to impact, how teachers affect students, how musicians affect the listeners, that these dichotomies are playing out all the time, 24/7. But when you start to recognize that, you start to realize that you not only fall on one side, you oftentimes are engaging in both and maximizing that. So it's practical ways to go about living your dreams and aspirations. Is not a matter of vaguely shooting for the stars and being disappointed because you didn't reach the mark that you set out for. You didn't serve your purpose. It's just like you have to consciously do these things. You can't unconsciously go throughout your day and expect things to get done. That's madness. That's why I put a big emphasis here on breaking things down and understanding things on its most fundamental level for yourself. Before you can understand the complexity in the world outside of you, But yeah, that's another podcast episode for y'all, man. I love y'all and I thank y'all for tuning in constantly, forever, man. Serve y'all purpose. Simply, that means taking action towards your goals. Then when it's all said and done, you want to know that you left that impact that you've been feeling deep down in your heart and in your mind. And the only way to get there is you got to have a pure heart and you got to have a sound mind. And they have to work together in order for their body to act out the task that it needs to do. And oftentimes it's going to be for the collective. It's bigger than yourself. That's all I got to say. Love y'all. I'm out. Deuces. Happy Mother's Day!